Hi, everybody. Now, I think hopefully everybody is here who's coming. Let me just put my video on. Hi, everybody. I'm David Jack, and I'm going to be hosting this online event today. I don't know if I've met anybody before. Just looking through some names, and there's a couple of people whose names I actually recognise. So hello if I have met you before. I seem to be having a bit of an issue with my video here, so if I go black, I would just try and switch that back on quickly afterwards, but please excuse this. So thank you all for coming, and what I'm going to do is I've done a little presentation to go through. So today we're going to go through a masterclass of how to streamline your skincare, so basically simplifying your skincare routine. And this is something that I've been talking a lot about on social media and things, because I think that generally people overuse products and there's not really any need to use certain products in your skincare routine. And actually reducing your skincare routine to a very simple thing is going to be better for your skin, better for the environment, better for your pocket and everything. So that's what we're going to go through today. So I'm going to start off just sharing a very small presentation. So let me just get this over here. So let's see if everybody can see this. So thanks to Get the Gloss for allowing me to do this presentation. And I'm going to go through a number of different things. First of all, I'll just talk a bit about my background, how I got into skincare and things. And then I'll go into a bit about skin science, and then about kind of some of the skin problems that I see and what you can do with skincare to kind of to kind of solve these problems, and also kind of from an anti-aging point of view, what you can do for your skin. So my background is that I'm a medical doctor. I graduated in 2008 from University of Glasgow, which is, as you all will know, up in Scotland. It's got a medical school that's been there since the 1800s, and it's one of the few medical schools that is very strong in teaching anatomy. So I did a degree in anatomy and embryology when I was studying medicine, and then after I graduated, I became a member of the Royal College of Surgeons. So I've got a surgical background. My background is in kind of plastic surgery rather than dermatology. So I've got a very surgical approach to things. I like to rationalize things, which is what surgeons do. I've done a fellowship in microsurgery. And also when I was in NHS, I was doing mostly plastic and reconstructive surgery, burns, skin cancers, and other kind of dermatological type surgery. I've now got a private skin clinic in London, which I've had for about 8 years. I've been doing aesthetics for 14 years, and I've got a skincare brand, which is called My Name, basically, which some of you may have heard of. If not, I believe you're getting one of my serums sent out to you. So that's my background. As I said, what I want to do is go through skin science, how the skin works, why we age, what are the different factors contributing to aging in the skin, also different factors contributing to things like irritation in the skin, inflammation, which indirectly kind of affect aging, but can cause sort of shorter term issues as well with the skin. Then go through my simplified approach to skin health, which is called ABC plus probably D of skincare, and then some common skin complaints and how to approach them. So starting with the skin, if any of you had a background in biology, you might have seen this diagram before. It's usually the very first chapter in any physiology or anatomy book is the structure of the skin. And the skin is the largest organ of the body. It accounts for the entirety of the surface area of our body, with the exclusion of what's from our mouth to our bottoms inside. So it's exposed to the environment, so it has a protective function primarily, and it also has an immune function. It has a function of insulation as well, so it keeps us warm, it protects everything that's underneath, and it also has other kind of functions when it comes to heat regulation and things like that as well. So it's made of multiple layers, starting from the most superficial down. The top layer is called epidermis, which is a layer of the skin that constantly renews. So at the bottom of the epidermis, you see this, I don't know if you can see where the cursor is, there's this kind of very thin layer, which is called the stratum basale, which is where the skin cells are located that are dividing. So the alive skin cells that constantly divide are at the bottom of this layer. And what happens over the course of about 6 weeks, these cells are constantly dividing, making new skin cells and pushing the already produced skin cells to the top, where they die and then they slough off, and it just constantly renews like that. And that's what forms dust in the air, basically, in our environment, as these skin cells are shed. So there's 5 layers to this. This epidermal layer is about sort of 0.5 to 1 millimeter thick. It's an outer barrier that provides a lot of the protection for the deeper layers of the skin. And this layer is essentially largely a kind of dead layer that just sits there as a barrier. And it's, as I said, constantly renewing. And this is where this is the layer which kind of blocks UV light going deeper into the skin. And it contains a number of different cell types, which I'll go into in a sec. Deep to that is the dermis layer, which is the kind of living layer of the skin, as it were. So it's the layer that has a blood supply, it's where the nerves and blood vessels are. It's where the hair follicles, the bases of the hair follicles are, which actually are derived from the epidermis. And it's a structural layer. So this is the layer which over time with age becomes thinner. This is where the wrinkles happen. And this is the layer where all the collagen and elastin of the skin is, and also your skin's natural hyaluronic acid. So this is the layer that is kind of, when we think about anti-aging, is really, really important, because this is the one that's kind of most affected and most obvious that it's affected with aging in the skin. It's about 2 to 4 millimeters thick, which varies from place to place in the body. For example, in the palms of the hands, the soles of the feet are slightly thicker than, say, the skin under the eyes, which is a lot thinner. And this is the area that we'll kind of talk about when it comes to skincare and supplements. And then deep to this, there's a layer of cushioning, which is the subcutaneous fat, which is for insulation, it's for energy storage in the body. And this obviously varies in quantity from person to person. So if you're carrying a bit of extra weight, then this is the layer that will be slightly thicker than people who are really skinny. So this is the skin. So we've got quite a few questions coming in, and what I'll do, if anybody does have any questions, then I can kind of answer them throughout this, or if there's anything that kind of relates to what I'm saying, or if anybody wants to chip in with anything, I can do that throughout, or I'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end, and we can kind of answer those questions then. Okay, so those are the layers of the skin, the main layers of the skin. And then thinking about that, let's go to the next slide. There are different cell types in these layers, and this is important also when it comes to skincare. So when we're thinking about skincare and what's actually doing, what we need to think about is how it gets through this upper layer of epidermis. So in order to get to the functional layers of the skin where the skin cells are dividing, where there's collagen and elastin that's thinning and stuff, where there's pigmentation, we actually need to get through these top layers in order for skincare to work. So the skincare needs to penetrate this epidermal layer to get to cells like keratinocytes, which are the dividing cells in the skin, and melanocytes, which are the pigment producing cells in the skin, which all lie at this basal layer here in the skin. So there's the keratinocytes have their basal cells in this layer. And then deep to this, in this epidermal layer, the fibrous layer, there are these fibroblast cells, which are the ones that produce collagen and elastin, and they're the ones that we think about a lot when we're talking about anti-aging skincare, and they're actually pretty deep into the skin and quite hard to reach. So that is something to think about when it comes to skincare, and I'll go into that in a wee bit later. The deeper layer mostly contains these fat cells, which are, as I said, just kind of storage cells, and they provide cushioning, and they contain vitamins and are more of a storage thing in the skin. And within the dermis, there's a few other cells. There's cells that are related to the nervous system. There's immune cells. There's sebaceous glands as well, which are the glands that produce oil, and these are affected obviously in acne and conditions like that. And then there's other kind of sweat glands and things in this layer as well. So what things can do damage to the skin? So our skin is constantly being bombarded with things from the inside and also the outside. So constantly throughout the year, one of the main factors causing damage to the skin is UV light. And UV light obviously comes from the sun, also comes from certain kind of forms of light. For example, on computer screens as well, there will be a degree of UV light coming from computer screens and mobile phones and things. Also, blue light is relatively damaging. This is because it's very high energy light. And UV light falls into two main categories when it comes from the sun. So there's UVA and UVB. UVA is kind of ultra high energy, UVB is slightly lower energy. UVA is constantly present throughout the year, penetrates because it's very high energy, it comes through clouds. It also penetrates right down into the deep fat layer. So UVA is the one that will cause kind of insidious damage to the skin. So it causes the dermis to thin over time, causes damage to the fat cells, volume change with the skin over time, and I'll show you a picture in a sec just to illustrate how dramatic this can be. But this is one of the key things that is causing damage to the skin. So we really need to think about that when it comes to skincare. The other thing that's becoming increasingly a factor is the role of pollution, which it tends to not penetrate particularly deeply into the skin, but because pollution contains lots of things like heavy metals and other chemical compounds that cause irritation, it can cause inflammation in the skin as deep as the kind of upper levels of the dermis of the skin. So definitely something we need to consider also when it comes to how we kind of protect against this. And then we have the kind of internal things that can cause issues in the skin. So there's inflammation from disease, and there's glycosylation, which is a process where if you're kind of ingesting lots of simple sugars, what can happen is that in the tissues generally, not just in the skin, but sugars can bind to proteins in the tissues, and then this changes slightly the shape of proteins. So in the dermis of the skin, where you've got the collagen and elastin and all of these different proteins, when the sugars bind to them, they slightly change the shape of the proteins, and this is recognized by the immune system as being a protein that's abnormal. So it goes to destroy this, and it creates inflammation. And then secondary to that, you get breakdown of these molecules and areas in the dermis of the skin. So the dermis becomes thinned with inflammation because of this protein breakdown. So thinking about diet and glycosylation and sugars is also really important when it comes to thinking about how the skin ages as well. Other lifestyle factors like smoking are really important, because that obviously smoking decreases blood flow to tissues because it causes vasoconstriction, but it also causes a lot of oxidative stress, which also does this damage to proteins in the skin and also damages skin cells directly that are producing these things. So all of these factors are really important when it comes to skin damage and aging, and there's things that we can think about that with skincare and supplements that we can do about all of these. Obviously, all of this is on a basis of genetic predisposition. Some people will be genetically predisposed to have really thick, healthy dermises that renew really well. Their cells are really active. They produce loads of collagen and elastin, and it's really easy for them to produce that. Other people will not have this ability genetically, so will be at a sort of a worse kind of starting point. And then all of these things on top of one another will just kind of contribute to that person looking older than their peers if they have a genetic predisposition to age more quickly. But essentially, all of these things are resulting in oxidative stress, which is where you're getting these sort of molecules being produced and damage to the tissues, and then inflammation, which, as I said, also results in damage to proteins, thinning of the skin, and disruption of cellular behavior at all of the different layers in the skin. Okay, so just to illustrate how some of these things will result. There's a couple of pictures here. Some of that you might have seen this picture before on the left hand side, which is a really famous picture that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And this shows this guy here who is he was a truck driver in the US, obviously driving on the left hand side. So the left hand side of his face was being exposed constantly, more than the right hand side, through glass. to UV light. And as I said before, UVA is the one that is there year round. It can penetrate through glass because it's very high energy, and it's also very deeply penetrating into the skin. And you can see here, if you look at this chap, his skin, not only does his skin look markedly older on the left-hand side than the right-hand side, but also if you look at the position of his pupils in his eyes, you can see that the pupil on the left-hand side versus the right-hand side is actually lower. And this is because UVA light penetrates right down as far as the bone through the fat in the skin, which, as I said, was the deepest layer in the skin, and it actually causes damage even to the fat cells in the skin. So this over time, what will result is that the fat will lose volume over time. And then cause this sagging, the drop in the position of the eye because it's got less fat to support it. And then the eye itself has started to shift down the way. So this just illustrates the major effect of UVA light over time with constant exposure, even if it's behind glass. So that's something really to bear in mind when it comes to daily sunscreen. And we'll go into that in a wee bit. Smoking is also another major factor, as I said in this slide before. And a really good way to look at the effects of certain environmental issues on the skin, environmental meaning things that we do to ourselves or stuff in the environment that's not genetic, is to look at twin studies. And there's two twin studies here that I've shown the photographs from the University Hospital at Cleveland of two twins, one of whom has smoked and one of whom hasn't smoked over a course of about 20 years. And you can see very clearly in this lady here, her sister who hadn't smoked compared to herself who has smoked, there's a massive difference in the volume of the skin, and also the quality of the skin. She's got deeper lines, worse pigmentation, skin looks much more sallow, the eyes are more sunken here. So illustrating the effect that smoking has on the skin. And as I said, this is due to restriction in blood flow and also oxidative stress on the skin. Similarly, this one here, you can very quickly tell who is the sister who's a smoker. Obviously this one, major volume loss compared to her sister, much deeper lines and wrinkles, eye bags, change in eye position as well because of damage to the fat around about the orbit as well. So smoking is, again, just illustrating that it's a really major factor. There are similar sort of twin studies for diet, other kind of aspects of skin health that are really interesting to look at. So if you Google twin studies and skin, it's quite interesting to see. So these just illustrate some of these external factors that we need to think about when we're rationalizing why we use skincare products. So that being said, all of these damaging things, it's quite depressing, but actually your skin has a lot of ways to protect against all of these factors. So as I said, in the upper layers of the skin, there's a number of different cell types, one of which is the melanocyte cell, which is the pigment producing cell, which lives in the upper layer of the skin in the epidermis. So it lives right at the bottom of this. And what the melanocyte cell does is it produces a pigment called melanin in response to UV light. So whenever UV light hits the cells, what it does is it causes the cells to change their DNA activity, to switch on the genes to produce melanin, and then that cell hyper produces melanin, and then it feeds it to all of the cells around about via little tentacles in the epidermis. And this response is kind of cumulative over time. So this melanin, what it does is it is basically a pigment that interacts with a large number of wavelengths coming from the sun's rays, and it blocks them from penetrating any deeper into the skin. So the UV ray hits the melanin, it heats up, fragments or kind of changes shape, and then the energy is converted from light energy to heat. Is really important nowadays, particularly with us going on holidays. Our skins are like, obviously further south you go on Earth, people's skin is developed to become darker, so there's natural levels of melanin are designed to kind of cope with this. But now that people are kind of traveling all over, very pale skinned people will be spending a lot more time in the sun than they would have done kind of 200 years ago. So it's really important to think like how you kind of deal with that. And UV filters and skincare are probably the most important thing to consider when it comes to a modern skincare routine. With pollution, your skin has a number of different sort of protective mechanisms. So it has the epidermal barrier, which protects against general threats. It protects against bacteria, infections, all sorts of other things. But it also is there to kind of protect against environmental pollutants. So the top layer of the skin, as I said, is formed with lots of dead cells that are filled with a substance called keratin, and also the kind of natural sebum or oil that's produced by the skin. And what this sebum does is it basically anything that's kind of irritating or sort of pollutants on the skin, it actually dissolves in the sebum. And the sebum itself contains a number of different natural antioxidants which will neutralize this on the skin surface. Obviously, when you're in a very polluted area or something, and the level of pollutants goes above your natural protection, then they can get deeper into the skin. But this layer does have a layer of protection against some of it. The other thing that on this layer that's really that helps with protection of the skin is the microbes on the skin, so the skin's microbiome, which is any surface on the body, including the mouth, through the GI tract, on the skin surface. So anything that's exposed to the outside world is also an area that is colonized by other microbes, so bacteria, fungi, protozoa, all sorts of different microbes, which actually serve a really important function in the skin. So they're there for an immune function. So these these colonize the skin, take up space, and use the nutrients on the skin to prevent bad bacteria basically colonizing the skin, creating inflammation. And sometimes when you get disruptions with this microbiome, it can result in issues like acne and stuff. But this layer of microbes also it regulates the pH, so the acidity of the layer, so can block pollution as well, and other kind of environmental factors from damaging the deeper layers of the skin. When it comes to smoking and glycosylation and things, from the blood supply to the skin, we also have a supply of endogenous antioxidants. So these are molecules that basically react with anything oxidative, so any molecules in the skin that are causing oxidative stress or inflammation, and this will kind of quench that a bit. But there's a limit to how much that can do again. So if you've got loads of inflammation and oxidation, then this system becomes overwhelmed, and we have to think about how we can kind of supplement that as well. And then for genetic predisposition, we've got lots of repair genes as well that are in the skin, but that's going into quite a bit too much depth, I would say, for tonight. So skincare, what can we actually do with skincare, and what's the point in using skincare products? Because although it's nice to put stuff on our skin and it makes us feel good, there's got to be a point to it to make it worthwhile doing from a time point of view, also from a sustainability point of view. And as I said, I'm really into rationalizing things to what we actually need and what is surplus to requirements. And you find that if you're using too much, sometimes things interact and they don't function at the same pH and stuff. So it can actually cause a bit more irritation in times. And we often see this. So the key things with skincare is that what we want to do is block UV rays. We want to neutralize things. So as I said, we've got lots of oxidative stress going on all the time in the skin. Our body is kind of neutral, sort of stopping in a way. Inflammation is going on all the time, which our body is usually coping with, but we sometimes find it becomes a bit overwhelmed. We want to stimulate things, for example, collagen deposition, because the dermis of the skin is thinning with time. We want to sort of reduce melanocyte activity sometimes for treating pigmentation, and there's lots of molecules that can help with that in skincare. We also want to optimize the skin's microbiome by cleaning it in an appropriate way, not overstripping the skin, but making sure that the right bacteria and funguses and things are growing. And then we can also use skincare to treat specific skin issues. So what we're essentially doing with skincare is optimizing these physiological processes that the skin has to allow it to just work its best. Obviously, if we just leave things, the skin will cope by itself generally, but there are these things that we can do now because of modern skincare to really supercharge what our skin can do naturally. So what skincare, the issues with skincare are that often, as I said, when we're using skincare products, if we're using something that won't penetrate into the skin, we're maybe not getting to the right level. So we have to think about what level of the skin that we want to get to with specific skincare. So as I said, if we wanted to get to melanocytes, which are the pigment cells, we want to just get to the kind of top layers of the skin. So we need something that's going to penetrate through the top layers, but just reach this layer here. So into the basal layer of the epidermis. If we're wanting to target the fibroblast cells in the skin to produce new collagen and elastin, we want to get right down through this top epidermis layer, which is a protective barrier at the end of the day, and get into the dermis, into the layer where these fibroblast cells are. So the skincare has to really go through quite a lot to get into that layer. There's a huge number of barriers to this. So firstly, there is the kind of epidermal, the upper barrier that I talked about before, with all of the microbes, all of the lipids, all of the kind of dead cells and the junctions between the cells. So we need skincare that's going to be able to overcome that. And the way that skincare can do that is by sort of addressing a number of different things in terms of what the molecules look like in skincare. So firstly, generally speaking, if something is lipid soluble, so it's fat soluble, then because this layer of the epidermis is rich in lipids, anything that is lipid, it will will more easily penetrate through the skin. Also, if it's at the same pH as the skin, so the skin usually sits at about pH 4.5, and it's got a negative charge. So any molecules that are negatively charged and this kind of low acidic pH will generally penetrate better than something that's either extremely acidic, which will then burn the skin, or something that's alkaline or neutral, which just won't go anywhere, or it won't function at the pH that it's supposed to. Also, the kind of moisture content of the epidermis will affect how certain molecules penetrate. Also, the temperature of the skin, because this affects how fluid the fats are on the surface of the skin, and also the size of the molecules. So you might have heard me or anybody else who's in skincare talk about the 500 Dalton rule. And generally speaking, if a skincare molecule, say something like vitamin C or retinol or something, is below 500 kilodaltons, then it will penetrate easily down to the deeper layer because it's small enough to kind of get through the gaps in the cells. So the barrier to overcome is the epidermis, its pH, all of these dead cells, all the junctions between the cells, and also then the blood supply, which is very superficial in the dermis. And what that can do is just carry away all the skincare that you've just put on into the bloodstream, and then it just gets dissipated throughout the system. So what we want is something that's going to be able to overcome all those barriers, be the right pH, be the right concentration, be the right fat solubility, and not then be carried away by the blood supply, because then it's not getting into the deeper layers where it wants to work. So there's certain things in skincare that can actually help that penetration. And these include things like fats that things can be dissolved in, such as ceramides. You can use certain enzymes in skincare. You can use things called liposomes as well, which are basically fatty coatings on skincare ingredients, which help the skincare to penetrate into the skin. And then there's other things that kind of prevent the skincare from just sitting on the surface then being removed, which are called occlusive agents, which include things like fatty acids, silicons, and fatty alcohols. So skincare has quite a tough job actually, once you put it on the skin, actually getting into the deeper layers of the skin. So it's really important to think about what molecules in skincare that you're using and what are the types of molecules. And this is what kind of sets good skincare apart from kind of average skincare, is that the molecules in good skincare are generally kind of more advanced. They're kind of newer forms of esters of things like vitamin C and things that will penetrate into the deeper layers. So using good quality skincare that is optimized to penetrate into the skin is really, really important. And a lot of the more kind of high street products generally will not have the same technology as more advanced kind of cosmeceutical products will have. So anyway, so what can we do with skincare? So skincare can be used to clean the skin, as I said. So you can clean debris, you can clean it, sort of neutralize pollution, can unclog pores, and this would be the role of a cleanser. This other thing that you want to be doing when it comes to kind of neutralizing pollutants is using an antioxidant on the skin. So this is another category of skincare that is important to think about. The other really sort of the thing that happens as we age is that we overproduce melanin and we develop pigmentation. So skincare, as I said before, can affect the melanocyte cells of the skin that produce pigment, and we can slightly kind of suppress excess production of melanin in the skin, and this would be the role of an antioxidant or a serum. And then the other thing that we can do, if we can get molecules that can penetrate deeply enough into the skin, is stimulate fibroblast activity in the skin, so the cells that produce collagen, to boost collagen and elastin levels. And these would fall under the category of antioxidants, basically, and also supplements. And supplements, I don't know if anybody has seen my range of skincare, but I actually have a big focus on supplements, because the deeper layers of the skin, if you can actually get into the sort of the upper layers of the dermis with skincare, then that's great. But the deeper layers of the skin, which contain fibroblasts and all of these other kind of immune cells and things, is purely nourished by the deep blood supply. So the deep dermal plexus of blood flow, blood vessels. And really the only way that gets its nutrition is from inside. So supplements and antioxidants in supplements are generally thought to have quite a big role in this part of the physiology of the skin, although it's at very early days for evidence for this. So just a very few categories of skincare products that actually we really need to be thinking about. As I said, the most important one is to block UV light, because that accounts for a huge portion, about 80% of skin damage, and sunscreen is what we would use on that. So I kind of thought about this, rationalize everything into a really basic thing. I'm quite a simple person when it comes to thinking about how to deal with things, and I find that the ABC rule really works well, and I've included D just as a kind of supplementary thing to include diet and supplements. But essentially what you need to be using on your skin on a daily basis is some antioxidant, and you would usually use this twice a day. You would want to block with a sunblock to block UV rays, and then cleanse your skin. So optimizing the pH of the skin and optimizing the skin's microbiome with a good cleanser is really important as well. And then, as I said, diet and supplements to kind of reach the deeper layers of the skin. So I'm going to go through what an ideal routine might look like. This is my skincare products. So I basically got 3 daily products. We've got a serum, which is antioxidant. We've got all day long SPF moisturizer, which is an SPF 50. It's actually SPF 55. So it's a really high level of UVA, UVB protection. And then Good Night, which is an antioxidant night cream. So you're getting 2 pulses of antioxidant through the day, and then you're getting your protection with all day long. And then I've got a range of supplements as well, one of which is Skin Shake, which is an antioxidant based supplement for the skin that includes lots of micronutrients. So an ideal morning routine might look like this. If you're doing it from a kind of purely sort of anti-aging, sort of looking after your skin health point of view. So you would start off with a cleanser, and the cleansers generally in the morning should be something that includes an antioxidant like vitamin C, and maybe like a very light exfoliating alpha hydroxy acid, but nothing too harsh. And what that's doing is neutralizing and balancing the pH, neutralizing sort of oxidative stress in the skin that might have occurred overnight, balancing the pH of the skin, and it's your first kind of prep step of antioxidant. Then you would use an antioxidant on the skin, and this would be in the form of a serum. As I said, I've got my Good Morning Serum, which contains a number of different antioxidants. So it's got an ester of vitamin C, which is, as I showed before, the penetration thing. If you use esters of things, then they're generally a bit more fat soluble if it's an ester of vitamin C, so it'll penetrate deeper into the skin. And this serves as your kind of main antioxidant step in the daytime. So you're getting that kind of antioxidant support for the day ahead. So as a kind of protective layer against pollution. Also, the bacteria in your skin like an acidic environment, and most serums will function around about the sort of pH that they like. Also, the serum that I have, it has a lot of anti-inflammatory ingredients like azelaic acid and niacinamide in it, as well as vitamin C. And when these are used together, what you find is that it actually has a protecting effect on the skin cells against UV light. So antioxidants are a really important step in the morning, although it's not going to provide you full protection against UV light, which is the most important thing to protect against. And also, most of these antioxidants that I've talked about, like vitamin C, niacinamide, which you'll have heard of, which is vitamin B3, azelaic acid, also function as tyrosinase inhibitors, which are the molecules that you would look for to kind of treat hyperpigmentation, and they're also anti-inflammatory as well. So most molecules that are used in active skincare will have a number of different roles, and definitely the serum that I have in my range does all of these jobs. Then when you've used your antioxidant serum, then the next step is to kind of moisturize the skin, and also the most important thing is to use a good sunscreen, which will protect against UVA, UVB light. Also, modern sunscreens are starting to add ingredients that can protect against blue light as well from computers, which is high energy ultraviolet. It's a high energy violet light and blue light, which is high energy. Is not going to penetrate particularly deeply into the skin, but it will reach the layer where the melanocytes are, so the basal layer of the skin. So it's another important consideration. And my all day long moisturizer contains all of these things in addition to some antioxidants as well. So it also has things like hyaluronic acid, which is a moisturizing factor. It has niacinamide, azelaic acid again, which is very anti-inflammatory. So it's giving you additional antioxidants in addition to the serum, and also vitamin E as well, which works really nicely with vitamin C to treat hyperpigmentation. And then what you might consider is also at that stage in the day. So you've done your 3 skincare steps, very simple, and then you might consider using a supplement just to kind of boost the skin from inside. And the supplement generally would include antioxidants, and that's the most important thing. There's other supplement ingredients which I'll go into in a sec, which are worth considering as well. And then at night time, that'll be through the day. If you're somewhere sunny, then you might want to reapply your sunscreen a couple of times through the day. And then in the evening, what you want to do is neutralize oxidative stress, and then just provide some support for the skin overnight. So cleansing is the first step. Again, neutralizing balanced pH, giving a bit of antioxidant at that stage. And then probably the most important support that you can provide your skin overnight is by, again, using antioxidants. And the antioxidants that you can use at night are slightly different from in the morning. You can still use vitamin C, you can still use niacinamide, but you can also use retinoids at night. And retinoids, generally speaking, things like retinol will be damaged by UV light, so not ideal to use during the daytime. So I would always avoid sort of a daytime retinoid. Because the likelihood is that it will be broken down on your skin and not do that much. So using retinoids at night are great. So retinoids are basically molecules that are related to vitamin A. They get sometimes a bit of a bad rap because they can irritate the skin ever so slightly. They sometimes, when you're starting to use them, will make the skin a bit dry. However, there are new forms of retinoids which don't do this, and these are things like sort of gentle retinoids like retinol palmitate, also 4th generation retinoids like Gran-Active retinoid, which is what I have in my night cream, which is a deeply penetrating retinoid, which doesn't have the same kind of effects of retinol in that it doesn't dry your skin out, it doesn't kind of irritate your skin, so you can use it every night right from the beginning of using it. It still provides the retinoid support of collagen stimulation, treatment of pigmentation, regulating sebum production that you get from retinoids. So this would be the 2 steps that you would use pretty much every night. Don't really need to do much more than this, as long as the night cream that you're using is moisturizing and it contains a bit of antioxidant as well to support your skin cells as they turn over overnight. And then what you might want to do as well is once per week, just do a kind of exfoliation just to kind of help penetration of the skincare again. As your skin cells are dividing, they're building up this kind of layer of dead skin cells, which just makes it a bit more difficult for skincare to penetrate through. So exfoliating with a very gentle peel, maybe once a week. And I've also got some peels in my range that would do this, that is a good idea just to kind of help with the penetration of the rest of the skincare that you're using. And you can use just ever so slightly higher concentrations of ingredients if you're doing it as a peel once a week. So things like retinoids, you can use a slightly higher concentration. You can use higher concentration of azelaic acid if you've got irritated skin and things. So that's the ideal routine, I would say. Then supplements, I often get asked about supplements as well. As I showed, a lot of the layers of the skin don't get much from skincare other than protection from UV light. So I'm a real believer in supplements, but there are certain supplements that I don't think are worth taking. And people always ask me about collagen supplements, so collagen tripeptides. I'm not a fan of these because essentially collagen peptides are just little fragments of proteins which you can get from your kind of general diet. There's no need to use hydrolyzed animal-based products for something that is not absolutely essential in your diet, I think, from a sustainability point of view. So I really don't like the idea of using animal-based collagen supplements, so bovine or fish-based collagen supplements. However, most of these collagen supplements will have really great vitamins in them. So things that like high levels of vitamin C, which is really, really important for collagen stimulation. And these are the actual things that are doing the work. So these are the things that are kind of stimulating the fibroblast cells in your skin to assemble new collagen molecules, not the collagen molecules that you're taking in collagen supplements. These will just be used for kind of general protein formation in your body. And there's been a lot of kind of very small scale studies of collagen supplements by manufacturers of collagen supplements to show that the collagen does end up in your skin, but that's not a surprise because amino acids from any protein that you're taking, some of them will end up in your skin as collagen. So it's not, I really don't believe in some of the science that behind collagen supplements, but there is a lot of evidence for antioxidants, for example, plant polyphenols, which come from sort of bright fruits and vegetables, vitamin C and E, particularly when it comes to treating hyperpigmentation. And there's evidence that taking supplements of vitamin C and E can over time help with both collagen stimulation and also with treating hyperpigmentation. Vitamin A, which is kind of the retinol family, but in supplements these would be in the form of carotenoids such as lycopene. Biotin is a really good supplement to take because it kind of enhances skin, hair, and nail growth. Other B vitamins such as B3 and B5, omega-3 fatty acids, because these are important in formation of the sebum in the skin, and then other micronutrients involved in collagen formation, such as copper and selenium, zinc, magnesium, and then probiotics for gut health. And that's a whole other topic, which we don't have time to speak about, but there's a big role for probiotics in gut health, and then indirectly gut health in skin health. So in saying that, all of what I've talked about is for kind of general skin, sort of skin and anti-aging, but there are some skin conditions that do need extra help on top of this kind of very basic skincare routine. For example, inflammatory conditions where you've got an excess of inflammation in your skin, and conditions like acne, rosacea, eczema, and you would need specific skincare for this. And often that would be a case of using something maybe twice a day that is very anti-inflammatory to help shut down those processes. Hyperpigmentation, as I said, most of the ingredients in active skincare will have a role in treating hyperpigmentation. But if you've got very stubborn melasma, if you've got really bad sun damage or post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, then you might need extra help with this. And then also menopausal skin, which is generally very dry in relation to decrease of estrogen and progesterone levels, which impairs sebum production in the skin, so oil production, so your skin becomes dry, quite lackluster, lines and wrinkles develop. And this is all about kind of hydrating the skin, boosting skin hyaluronic acid levels, and skincare in combination with treatments are kind of what are needed in that sort of situation. We're running short on time, so what I'm going to do is, rather than go through these in more detail, I'm going to just open things up and see what questions people have. So let's have a look. So pigmentation, loss of firmness, hooded eyelids. So with skincare for pigmentation, as I mentioned, the main things to look for in skincare is tyrosinase inhibitors, and also using a good SPF. This will also help with loss of firmness. Hooded eyelids are generally caused by volume change, and change in the bone structure around about the eye, and also fat volume loss. So sometimes those sorts of things require treatments in clinic, but definitely pigmentation is one of the key things that you probably should start with skincare for. And this would include looking for things in a serum with vitamin C, anti-inflammatory ingredients like azelaic acid, niacinamide initially. If that doesn't work, then you would maybe progress onto a prescription grade sort of skincare product for that. And if that doesn't work, then you'd maybe move on to kind of in-clinic treatments like microneedling and IPL and lasers. There's a kind of a sort of step ladder of complexity of treatments for pigmentation. Somebody also said about hereditary puffy eyes and dark circles. Dark circles are one of the most common things that people complain about. And there are a number of reasons that you can get dark circles. Partly sometimes pigmentation, partly volume loss. There are changes in the skin as well, because as I said right at the start, the skin around about the eyes is very thin. So it tends to age a bit quicker than elsewhere in the body, and very fine lines and wrinkles start to develop sort of earlier on in this area versus elsewhere in the face. So this again would be something that you'd maybe think about treating with tyrosinase inhibitors for the pigmentation. And then maybe, for example, if you look at me in this light, it look absolutely terrible, but I do have quite dark red circles in there because I've been up for hours and been working all day. But this sort of area, you'd want to maybe treat with some anti-inflammatory ingredients like azelaic acid and niacinamide, and then think about treating the volume deficit. There's the same pigmentation, hormonal breakouts. Hormonal breakouts are super common. And I'll go into that in a sec, just see if there's anybody else asking about this. So is everyone here? Fine feather forehead lines, tried morphosis and profile, no change, also genetic dark circles. So this is a difficult, fine forehead feather lines, I'd say probably Botox is the thing to try for that in the first instance, and then some skin. You've done some skin biostimulated morphosis profiling. Fine lines in the forehead is the most simple thing. Is a bit of Botox. Somebody's saying somebody started using my moisturizer. That's great, Angela. I hope you like it. Large pores in the skin that make it oily. Hang on. So somebody's asking about skincare. There's a huge list of serums that we're told that we should use, such as hyaluronic acid and retinol. Which are the ones that we should use that would benefit and simplify our skincare routine? So I'm not a huge believer in using loads, as I've said many times, of using loads of numbers of skincare products. However, there are lots of modern products, such as my own, not that I'm trying to force this on anybody, that contain all of these things in one product. And there's no reason why things like hyaluronic acid and retinol can't be used in the same product. You don't need to go out and buy, you'll end up spending the same if you're going out to buy a niacinamide serum, a vitamin C serum, a retinol serum, a hyaluronic acid serum, as you would do in getting one really good thing. It's been compounded at the right pH with everything in it. And I would say that good skincare products will contain a number of different things that are really curated well to work with whatever skin complaint that you're looking for. For serums, I would generally say that the best things that I would look for are just kind of high levels of antioxidants, because this is the main reason for using a serum. So things like vitamin C, vitamin E, hyaluronic acid can all be compounded together really nicely in a serum. So that's maybe something to use in the morning like that, and then retinoids generally at night time. And that's just the way that I would divide that. Somebody's asked about glutathione. Better to apply topically or take as a supplement. You can do both. All of my supplements have glutathione, and all of my topical products have glutathione in them as well. So how much product to use, this is another thing. So really, I mean, for cleansers, you can use quite a liberal amount of product. It's going to be washed away. For serums, I would use a small amount of product. If you're just doing the face, maybe a pea-sized amount. If you're using a sunscreen, then there is you do need to use a larger amount than a pea size. Depends on the type of sunscreen that you're using. If you're using a mineral screen, then you would want to use about 2 mils of that, which is actually quite a large amount. If you're using a chemical screen, then you need to use less of that. And then night cream, similar to a serum. I would say it really depends on the product that you're using. Should facial oil be part of a skincare regime, or does it prevent penetration? Not necessarily. So as I said, the top layer of the skin is covered in natural fatty acids and sebum. So oils can penetrate, but I would say that natural oils and stuff in skincare sometimes can be quite irritating on the skin and cause a bit of inflammation. Even though they're natural and things, a lot of plant-based oils and things are not great in skincare because they react with things in your skin. Sometimes they can create sensitivity and stuff. So I'm not a huge fan of loads of natural stuff in skincare, to be honest. Let's see. Should you exfoliate if you have sensitive skin and redness? You should be controlled with exfoliation, I would say. If you do have sensitive skin and redness, then the things that you should be looking out for are products with anti-inflammatory ingredients in it, and the major things would be azelaic acid and niacinamide, and also things that help repair the barrier, like ceramides. What about eye bags? Tried so many creams and nothing helps. It's really difficult with creams, to be honest. The only thing really with eye bags that you can do with topical skincare is treat pigmentation a bit, and also decrease collagen loss by using things like vitamin C, other biostimulators. But generally, eye bags would be a kind of in-clinic treatment thing. And then what about using soap on your face? Generally not, because soap is usually quite alkaline, so you don't want to be doing that. And it's quite astringent as well, so it really dries things. And remember in my presentation what I said, is actually the higher the moisture content of the skin, generally the better the penetration of skincare products. So you investing in a good cleanser is worthwhile. Cool. So I think that is us. If anybody else has any more questions, then I'm happy to take them just now. And somebody said, can you post before and afters to show the vitamin C that's injected to lessen darts? Yes, yeah, we have quite a few before and afters of that now. It's a treatment that my colleague Isabella does, where we inject vitamin C and other antioxidants and also hyaluronic acid around the eyes. And it stimulates collagen and also helps to treat dark circles. That's it. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining. And if anybody has any other questions that they want to ask me directly, then you can get me via Instagram. My handle is Dr. David Jack, and I believe that there's going to be a special discount code for products if anybody does want to try any of my products, if you've not tried them before, and that'll be sent out tomorrow. And I hope you all have a nice evening, and thank you for joining me so late in the evening. Great.